TorahCafe.com.
Welcome back. Tonight we're going to speak about some practical tips for positive thinking, how the Torah addresses the idea. We learned last time that even in secular circles, they're beginning to uncover that our speech and our thoughts influence material reality. So how does Judaism view positive thinking? When we discussed in a class about meditation, we spoke that unless a person meditates and is refining their mind constantly, we spoke about how engraving the ideas of Torah, the concepts of Torah, engraving them in our mind, unless a person is doing that all the time, the subconscious remains unrectified. It's just thinking about whatever under the sun. It's not focused, so the subconscious is thinking about whatever it wants. And we did an experiment even, and we discussed that a person cannot stop thinking. It's very difficult for a prolonged period of time to stop thinking. So there's always going to be thoughts filling our head. And if you have a non-rectified subconscious, what's going to happen? We're going to naturally be inclined to worldly or negative thoughts. That's going to be our natural inclination. A lot of things that we are exposed to in the world are very negative. The way we naturally look at ourselves and at the world is usually from a selfish or negative perspective. So we always need to be occupying our mind with positive thoughts. The truth of the matter is that any positive thoughts will work to at least keep a person in an upbeat mood, and that positive results will come from it. Any positive thoughts will work. But as the Talmud, the Gemara in Avodah Zarah teaches us, Ein Tov Ela Torah, the highest good, the only good is Torah. So how much more so when a person's thinking concepts of Torah, learning and ingesting and chewing over, really living with ideas of Torah, how much that will breed positive results, positive outcome. There's a story told, not a story, it's documented in the Torah. Many of you have heard the story. It's the story of Joseph. Now we've learned that Joseph was at one point the envy of his brothers. He was given a coat, he was his father's favorite boy, and all the other brothers were a bit envious of him. So what happened? One day, Joseph comes to check on his brothers, and we know what happened. They threw him in a pit. They left him. The Torah tells us that the pit was empty. There was no water in it. The pit was empty. There was no water in it. These are the words. So the Medrash questions the redundancy. If it was empty, there's no water in it, that's a very redundant statement. So the Medrash answers that it was filled with snakes and scorpions. It was empty of water, but it was filled with snakes and scorpions. In the Talmud, the Gemara Bava Basra tells us that water is symbolic of the refreshing flow of Torah wisdom. Water represents Torah. Water is life. Water is positivity. Water is enjoyment. So is Torah. The pit is the human mind. It's the vessel. If the human mind does not have water, does not have Torah in it, the natural outcome will be that it'll be filled with snakes and scorpions. If the mind is not filled with positive, with Torah, the only other result, the only other outcome is that it's going to have snakes and scorpions. It's going to have negativity and things that could potentially be damaging. With our own thoughts, there's no need per se to fight off the negativity. Many people ask, I'm a very negative person, or I tend to view things in a negative light. How do I fight those negative thoughts? The idea is not necessarily to fight the negative thoughts. It's just to add in the positive ones. Add in Torah. ingrain the ideas of Torah in your mind. Connecting to Torah is connecting to God. So how powerful is this idea? You have Torah ideas in a person's mind, the negative thoughts will just dissipate. It's kind of like if a person has a cup that's filled with poison. Think about it. A cup filled with poison. You don't necessarily have to empty out the poison. Let's say it's a big pot filled with poison. That it's too heavy to lift. You can't get the poison out by dumping it out. So you could just take a hose and keep adding water until the only thing that's left in there's no poison anymore, there's just water in there. Just keep adding in the positive, ingraining those ideas of positivity, and the negativity will just disappear. So engraving Torah concepts in our mind through meditation and contemplation of these concepts, we will only see things in the positive light with optimism and confidence. One of the classic examples about seeing things in the positive light and how we're meant to see everything in the positive light is the story with Rabbi Akiva. This story is told in the Talmud, in the Gemara in Brachos, and tells us as follows. Rabbi Akiva one time was traveling, and he traveled with his donkey to move his things. He traveled with a light, a candle, in order that he could learn, and a rooster in order that he can wake up on time. And in his travels, he came one time to a town, knocked on the door, and was trying to get some hospitality. Will you house me for the night? And one after the next, no one's letting him in. Okay. But Rabbi Akiva was a very not only confident guy, but a very positive person. And he was accustomed to say this phrase, Kol ma da'avid rachmana l'toiv avid. Everything that God does is for the best. Everything God does is good. So there must be a reason, there must be some underlying purpose why I'm not getting a place. It's fine, I'll just go camp out in the field over here. So on the outskirts of the city, he camps in a field, and he lights his candle, begins to learn, and the night's going smoothly. All of a sudden, the wind blows by, blows out the candle. Great. What are you going to do now? If that weren't bad enough, then an animal, a weasel or a cat, some sort of animal, comes and devours his rooster. So now he's not going to wake up on time. The night just keeps getting better and better. Then a lion comes and kills his donkey. Talk about a night from where. But Rabbi Akiva didn't let that deter him, and he kept his famous saying at mind. Kol ma da'avid rachmana l'tav avid. Everything Hashem does is for the best. Everything Hashem does is good. He goes to sleep, wakes up in the morning. He finds that the city, the town, the following morning, had been ransacked by the Romans. People had been beaten, murdered. If he would have accepted, or if someone would have accepted him for the hospitality, he would have been included in this mess. He knew. And not only that, but if he would have been in the field, and his light would have been on, and through all the commotion, his donkey would have, or his rooster would have howled, or cooed, as the case may be, it would have given him away, and they would have come and got him also. So everything Hashem does is for the good. Kol ma da'avid rachmana l'tav avid. What's interesting, just as a sort of Kabbalistic footnote, we know that words many times, or phrases that have similar numeric equivalents, have a relation with each other. Rabbi Akiva's famous phrase, Kol ma da'avid rachmana l'tav avid, has the numeric equivalent of 611. You know what else has the numeric equivalent of 611? Torah. Through ingraining Torah in our minds, through ingraining these positive thoughts, these concepts, this outlook of the world in our heads, we will see things in this light, and it will produce positive results. Now, how is it, what's the Jewish view of how do our thoughts actually cause positive effects? How does this take place in the Jewish literature? Find out next time.